How are you?
Great, man.
Haircut?
Haircut. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you haven't like this is just sort of a normal day hair. Like it's not like you're going out, it's not like you're going to work. This it's a Sunday. You haven't spent much time on it. So it's just kind of like this is how I woke up today
Well, I
hair.
spent a little bit of time on it.
And for that,
Spent a little bit of time on it.
I can't tell. But for like just got out of bed hair, I
No.
think it's sitting pretty nicely. I like it.
Yeah, no. I put in a curl cream.
Okay.
I shaped it. I've dried it. I've washed it. So I've actually put in quite a lot of effort.
Well, I stand by what I said. I think it looks fine. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think of the mo?
How do
we
you
like
feel
the
about
mo?
it?
Do we like the mo?
Yeah, I like the mo. You've had a mo before.
I've had a mo before. I feel like the mo was like going through a stage where it was like kind of ironic and hipsters would rock a mo, and now I think it's like acceptable to have a mo and for it just to be like a choice. And I feel like it's the best like facial hair shape that complements my face.
You don't think that
you
a
can
beard
agree?
offers the same
I
support,
think
same facial support?
I feel like the beard makes me look a bit fatter. So I think the mo kind of brings out my upper lip because it's all like illusion, isn't it?
The mo is definitely the most I have facial hair kind of move. You know,
Right.
it's very much more like a visible thing. Whereas for me, a beard sort of just like I don't really
Yeah.
see it. It just sort of like fades away.
Sure.
It's just sort of background noise.
Yeah,
And
I
so, of
understand.
those choices, this one seems like it suits you, but it's
Thanks.
also the only one
But
that's like more of a noticeable style. You know,
yeah,
like it'd be.
it is.
I
It
haven't
is.
seen you with just long mutton chops, for instance.
Yes, like it is a bold. In some ways, it's a bold. It's a statement of a facial hair, accessory. But it's funny because like I had the beard. This is my strategy behind the mo. I have the beard and then I just pull away the beard and leave the mo. So
Yeah,
it's really just the mo's always been there, but now you're just taking away the context of the beard.
yeah. I mean, that's all. That's all grooming, isn't it? The only feedback I'd give you is a little bit of maybe like a bottom trim, like a bottom level, a top lip just sort of overhang there. You got a
Yeah.
little bit of sort of like a Waluigi thing going on where it's a little bit,
Do I?
angular.
I don't know about that because you have
If
to.
you
It's not
open your
fully
if you
grown
open your
out.
mouth, see there from that angle, it feels
Yeah.
it feels a little bit like I'm seeing peaks and troughs,
Yeah. Well, I
And I
think I
feel
just
like
need
if you just took
to.
you took a shaver just along the bottom, just like in a flat, just like one on one side, one the other,
Yeah. Well, my style icon is Daniel Plainview, so that's what I'm going for. I'm going for the Daniel Plainview kind of unwashed bushman or
Okay,
slash
you're gonna
oil
bring one up.
tycoon look.
Gonna bring one up here, Daniel Plainview, just for a side by side comparison.
Let me know if you see it, because he's got the best moustache in the game.
I think you're on track. I think in a side by
Yeah.
side comparison, you can see that you're tucking a little bit in around the corners, a little bit more downward motion there than his is. His is a little bit more horizontal across the thing. There's a lot more sort of sideways motion in his
It's
stash.
more refined. It's more refined,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah. But I'll get there. I'll push through and
Yeah.
I'll get to the plain view level.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I appreciate the thought you've put into the analysis of my moustache here.
That's okay. Sometimes I try and be supportive just to change it up a little bit.
Yeah, just it's a nice color on you. Are you well? What's going on? Tell me.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty well. I'm
Over
still
COVID?
fighting off. No, I'm still fighting off this fucking cough. which is lingering and pretty annoying.
Yeah.
So yeah, like day to day, moment to moment, I'm feeling fine. I'm back at the gym in a regular fashion, and certainly not feeling like I'm unwell, except for the fact that I just have a shortness of breath of times, and we'll get into a coughing fit. And it's just like I've coughed so much that I threw up. Like it'll just like
Oh,
keep. It's just
God.
very hard to shake once it gets going. So it's not fun. So I'm going
That's
to head to the
disgusting.
doctors. Yeah. And hope that
You
they
coughed
can.
so much that you threw up,
Yeah.
like phlegm.
No, like
You
vomit.
coughed up phlegm
No, like vomit.
with phlegm.
No. I don't understand why you
It
keep
was
saying
just
phlegm.
vom.
No one said phlegm.
But how do you cough so much that you vomit?
Because it's like convulsing so much and like I guess just straining, like your body's in distress, and it's just like, okay, whatever's happening, get it out.
Jesus, that's fucking awful.
Yeah. It's
I
not.
wish I didn't hear that.
Well, I wish I didn't catch COVID, but we don't always get what we want.
Yeah. But okay. Jeez. That's really kind of affected me, the visual of that.
Yep. Yeah, no, well, I hope that you don't get it. So beyond that, I'm feeling pretty good. We're moving house in 2 weeks, so I've sort of been in the headache stage. Well, not the headache stage just yet, but like the preparatory stage of, okay, let's book a van. Let's find out what our new power provider is going to be. Let's get our internet arranged. Let's try and find a washing machine.
Did I know that you had found a place, or did you just neglect to tell me?
I think it was actually on my notes, but I'd forgotten to perhaps mention it in our last episode because there was other stuff that we were doing.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I
Tell
did
me about
mention
the
it.
place.
It was a while ago, but so I think about midway through June, our current landlord sent a message, and he's a private landlord, so we deal with him directly. Send a message saying, "Sorry guys, unfortunately my circumstances have changed and I need to sell the house, so I'll need you out of the place in 3 weeks."
Yeah, I remember that part.
And so we pushed back and we said, "Nah, that's illegal. You need to give us 3 months." And after a bit of wrangling with the tenancy tribunal, he accepted that. So we had until September, but we needed to find a place, and it's quite competitive out there. So we started looking and said, oh, if we get somewhere sooner, we will move out ahead of that September date. And after applying for about 5 different places and not getting anywhere, we succeeded and found a place sort of on the similar side of town. It's a bit more expensive. It's a bit bigger though, though it doesn't have sort of a garden space. And so yeah, in 2 weeks now, we will be moving out of here, relocating everything over there, and getting set up again for a new year.
Geez, well, I'm glad to hear you found a place. It's annoying after you've just, only lived in this place for a year or so.
Yeah, it was annoying. It was annoying at the start when he was like 3 weeks, get out, and we'll had to then go through this process of being like, you can't do that. And then it was annoying to start looking for places, and it's very competitive out there at the moment. So we've ended up in a place that we have to spend about $100 a week more on to have secured versus where we are today. Okay. And then our current deal as well also included all our bills, so we didn't have to pay for internet or for power or anything. It was all a flat rent rate. And now we need to also add on those bills onto the top of the more expensive rent as well. So that plus all the hassle and the costs associated with moving means it's quite an expensive process, really, versus if we'd just been able to roll over in this place and continue as we are happily. But that's life, I suppose.
That's life. Frank Sinatra.
And I suppose the other good thing is the weekend that he wanted us out was the weekend that we got COVID. So if we had all been working towards that date and hadn't pushed back to get some more time and somehow been able to find a place or whatever, we would have then been partly packed or had a truck booked or all that kind of shit, and then got sick and not been able to do it anyway. So in some ways, lucky.
But
Welcome to Deep
have you
Fort, everybody. Okay. Well, what was it?
I was just going to say, have you had any weird dreams? But I'll just shut up.
No, that's fine. Welcome to Deep Fort, everybody. This is a podcast in which we talk about real things with a scientific basis that people actually care about. I bring this up for no particular reason. Sitting through the internet with me this week, my friend Michael.
What's up?
You can't do a peace sign on a podcast. It doesn't.
The peace was for you. The babies was for them.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm Nick. Hi. Hey, Nick. Hi.
The last episode that we did, I was unsure about how it was going to turn out, and then I listened back to it. I was like, I can't remember. Sometimes I can't tell what's been edited, which is a credit to your editing, I guess. But I thought it flowed pretty well. It wasn't like boring. Like I think it could have been enjoyable. I was thinking that it wouldn't be enjoyable without people doing the game themselves, but I think it was like we painted it with our words enough that it could be enjoyable. So nice job.
Well, thank you, and thank you for bringing it up, because actually, Dad today on a family call, he had listened to that episode, and he had a bone to pick. Do you have any ideas or any guesses as to which decision that we both made together he disagreed with?
Oh, no, I don't. Was it me calling him his best friend?
That might have come up. No, his big issue with us was that we were happy to smush the Mona Lisa. He was like, no, can't smush the original Mona Lisa.
Oh boy, he's not a Mona Lisa guy, is he?
He thinks it's like one of the great artworks of all time. You can't just throw it under the bus, literally, I guess.
That's like saying that U2 are the greatest band of all time. It's like you haven't looked very far.
Let me defend. It's not his favorite painting. I don't think that he would spend a second at it when he visits the Louvre, but he would respect it for the impact that it had on culture and society and the artists behind it.
But what impact has it had apart from people just talking about it? Has it really like changed anyone's life? I can't imagine that someone's looking at that and is just incredibly moved by the Mona Lisa.
I mean, it's an interesting question, right? Because it's fucking everywhere. Like, everyone knows the painting. But what does that mean? Like, do people have a connection to it? Do people look at it? Like, it's sort of become the poster child, pun intended, nice. I suppose, for art itself, right? It has become the figure... Yeah. It has become the representation of art. Somehow. Like, how did that happen?
Yes.
At a certain point, it was commercialized.
Know. Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting to know if it had, like, if it when it was originally painted. I guess was it Da Vinci that did it?
Yeah. But it's like, at a certain point, someone thought, I'm going to put this on a T-shirt. There was several hundred years where it was just a piece of canvas and a few people would go and visit it. I don't know if it was popular in like 1910. Was it popular then? But at a certain point in the modern world, it became the piece. And it was on everything. It was a postcard. It was a T-shirt. It was a hat. Like, somehow it crossed over into this representation of everything.
Yeah. But I bet if we like brought Da Vinci back from the dead and we'd be like, guess what? Mona Lisa, kick it off. And he'd be like, what? That one? Really?
That one? Oh, I got the smell wrong.
The Sistine Chapel. I was like, yeah, people like that one too. But not as much as the weird lady that you painted.
Yeah.
Also, apparently it's really small.
Yeah, it's tiny. Yeah. It's like an A4 piece of paper.
Yeah. It's just weird. It's weird how things get hype and it is just hype. Like, it's like with Harry Potter and Twilight and stuff. Like, it's not that, I mean, maybe it's really speaking to people, but Twilight could have easily have been just like some book that just came and went. Like it's the fandom. People like getting around something together and hearing about it and stuff. Like I feel like a lot of it is arbitrary, like hype about things. Like you can get lucky maybe with certain books or ideas, and it will just build momentum, and then it will just be like an exponential growth at that point.
It's a lightning in a bottle thing, right? A time and a place. I do need to correct you. The Sistine Chapel was not Leonardo da Vinci. That was Michelangelo. But
They're all the
yeah,
same.
I'm.
Can I? I don't have no idea what we're talking about today. I come with nothing prepared at all.
Okay.
Once again, but I was just at the supermarket and I just saw the sweetest thing. Just made my heart sing, Nick.
Please tell me.
Made my fucking heart sing. There's this kid. He's probably like 8 years old, and he's going up to he had an electric scooter actually, which is a very weird detail. And he's buying
like a child-size electric scooter.
No, like a full-grown electric scooter.
A full adult's. Like do you have Lime over there? Like one of the pick 'em up off the streets electric scooters.
It wasn't one of those. It was just a black one.
It was like I personally own an electric scooter.
Well, I don't want to cast aspersions, but I don't feel like this is the type of kid that came into possession of the scooter lawfully.
He might have acquired this in other ways.
I think he may have borrowed it from a stranger.
Sure.
And he's up at the checkout guy, and he's buying what I would describe as an excessive amount of candy. And he's doing the old taking coins out of his pocket and placing them, and they're silver coins. And I'm kind of overhearing this conversation because I'm in the self checkout, and the checkout guy goes, "You don't have enough," and he's like, kind of not getting into an argument with him, but he's like, the kid's confused. And then I leave the self checkout, and this kid's about getting ready to take off. He's like, "Well, I'm out. Like, I can't. I don't have enough money." And then a guy, like a kind of cool looking hipstery guy, like around my age, he like steps in. And
I thought you were going to say about my style.
Well, similar style, kind of both cool. He comes over and he goes, "I've got it," and he swipes his card and just like gives the kid buys the kid the candy. And I was like, that it almost made me cry. Like that's such a cool move. And then I got immediately jealous, and I was like, I wish that should have been me. I should have been the hero.
I wish I'd thought of that. Yeah.
Because it's like $5. It's not really a cost to you. You make this kid's day, even though I don't think he said thank you. He just took the candy and rolled on out of there on a high-speed scooter. But you want to be the hero guy. That's the best kind of the low-cost hero. It's kind of anonymous, but people see it, they acknowledge it. I mean, that's what I'm all about. That's what I'm striving for on a daily basis. And it was a missed opportunity as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, that is a shame. But I guess once you know the full story, maybe it'll change your opinion a little bit. So this kid has pulled this trick 15 times today. He's on an electric scooter. He hits up every shopping center in like a 5-kilometer radius. He does the same thing. 20 cents. I got 20 cents. 20 cents. And then he just amasses fucking kilograms of it. Because everyone wants to be the cheap-ass hero. Everyone wants to be the cheap-ass hero, but that's how he gets them. And I suppose the worst part is he's got diabetes. So the reason he's not allowed these lollies is because it's not good for him. But he doesn't listen. He's shortening his own lifespan. He's really jeopardizing all of his future opportunities out of this narcissistic drive for sugary sweets. But it's killing him. It's really it's killing him.
Well, I'll tell you what, taking one look at this kid, I think diabetes is definitely on the menu. But maybe he's not eating it for himself. Maybe you're right, and then he's like got this whole operation going. He's given the puppy dog eyes to, shoppers around him. But then he's hoarding all this candy if he's doing it 5-6 times a day, and then taking it back to his crib and cutting it. maybe, and then
Yeah.
selling it to other kids for a profit.
Yeah. Rocks up at school. Hey, I got some of that sweet stuff you wanted. Little baggie under the table. Little bit of a,
Little
lunch
baggie of
money
the
swap.
sweets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Making a
strawberries and
nice
cream,
and
baby.
tidy profit.
Yeah, maybe it's getting high in his own supply, and that's why he's kind of porking out a little bit.
Yeah. Gosh. Well, sad times. What an indictment of our current economy and health system and the state of the future generations.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, you're a hero for not giving him anything. You should have reported him to the cops.
Yeah, next time I will. Next time I know better now. 000.
In terms of things we're talking about this week, I don't really have a huge deal lined up, but I do have one little bit of COVID follow-up, like Wuhan follow-up. Do you have a moment to talk this?
Do I have a moment? Yeah, I'll clear my schedule for the next half an hour.
Alrighty. So this is a follow-up because we talked about on a former episode about the potential for the lab leak theory, the idea that the COVID virus came out of a lab.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you saw this earlier this week, but there was a study released by Science, or sorry, I should say, in the publication Science, which is quite prestigious, which has definitively proven that it originated in the wet market at Wuhan, the seafood wholesale market.
Fake news already. I don't need to read it. Fake news.
Okay, not liking this sort of antagonism. I feel like I'm on the back foot, but let me just read through a summary thread here. I can put the article in the chapter notes, but there's a summary here from one of the authors of this study. So SARS-CoV-2 emerged into humans via the live animal trade at the Huanan seafood market in Wuhan. There were lots of debates about the origin, whether it was a lab leak, whether it was nature. A lot of it was valid concerns. Some of it was conspiratorial speculation. But a team of collaborators set out to actually look at the evidence and see what could be uncovered or extracted from what we knew. So there were a group of academic virologists, evolutionary biologists with no financial or political agenda. They were independent and they followed the evidence where it led. While the evidence base was incomplete and imperfect and often inaccessible, there was still evidence, quite a lot of it. So they set out to verify and analyze the evidence they could access, and the results were clear. All the data points led back to the seafood market. 5 months ago, they released their findings as preprints. They were convinced of it, but then they had to go through the rigors of peer review. They did it. They went through peer review. They had multiple rounds of highly critical review, and the papers were improved and led to this conclusion. So they say they provide conclusive evidence that SARS-CoV-2 emerged via at least 2 zoonotic spillovers from animals sold at Huanan, so 2 potential incidences. Yes, the data is incomplete and imperfect, but it's overwhelmingly showing that the pandemic began there, not at the Wuhan virology lab or any other lab. There remains no evidence for a lab leak besides the idea that it started in Wuhan. I won't go into all of the specific scientific details because A, some of it is above me, and B, there's a lot of it. But they basically looked at a map. Is it just
genetic mapping? Is that what it is?
It's basically they mapped the earliest recorded cases and looked at that geographically to see where they clustered, and it was all connected to or in the vicinity of the Huanan market, not the lab, which is in a different geographic space. They also then, that's regardless of whether those cases were known to have visited the market or not, like whether there was a link there. So the pattern of the cases, whether they were linked to the market or not, was consistent with chains of transmission flowing outward from a central point, like an earthquake spread, like radiating out from an epicenter. All of the cases and the dates and things locate around this Huanan market original place. The pattern becomes more diffuse as the virus spreads around Wuhan. This is consistent with how you'd expect it to play out. And then they sort of map it into distances and various radii and linked cases. And basically, the market is the bullseye of this giant spreading map of infection. There's the other thing that they looked at, which was about the multiple animal species that were known to be susceptible to SARS-CoV-2 that were being sold at Huanan in November and December 2019, which included raccoon dogs, red foxes, others that are susceptible like badgers, hares, hedgehogs, and muntjacs. And have been able to track those things. They found environmental samples associated with the live animal sales in those cages, and they looked at positive samples, and it's all clustered around the live animal area. Yeah, rather than go too much into the rest of the data here, they have basically reached a very evidence-based, peer-reviewed, journal published conclusion that it was a wet market origin of a virus jumping from species to species that caused this pandemic, and not a lab leak. There's obviously limitations from the lack of data that was provided by the Chinese government, among other places. But there is still enough to be very confident in that hypothesis. So I think it was just worth touching back or circling back around to this after a year or two, given we did talk about it previously.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a few of these studies that have definitively said the viruses come from the wet market. I think the argument from the other side just seems to be, but the lab's right there. And
exactly, yeah,
it just seems like an extraordinary coincidence, but like you can't base a theory on coincidence. There's also like a
and to be
conspiratorial
fair
element
as well. Sorry, I feel like we've got quite a lag at the moment. I'm not quite sure why. To be fair, I think it is a valid question to ask at the outset. Where did this come from? And did it come from a lab? I think that is a valid question to explore. But you also then have to be prepared when the evidence comes back to say, well, no, we haven't found any evidence that was the case.
Yeah. I think it wasn't it wasn't considered a valid question when Trump was in power, though. Like, it was interesting how this question got politicized so quickly. But I agree, like, we should obviously want to know how this virus started so that we can prevent it in the future. But, like, what do you think is better for the Chinese government? Do you think it's better that it comes from a wet market? Like, is that just like, oh, that's the, hygiene practices or, animal practices that they're of the civilians, rather than like a lab, which I assume is government run, which seems to have more connection to the government and should have more procedures in place to prevent it escaping?
I think it's definitely a better perception for the government that it came from a market rather than a lab. I think that's could be chalked up to, random chance or dumb luck. Putting aside the cultural questions of like selling those animals in that context anyway, versus something like a lab where it's a human failure, like it's a systems failure or a procedural failure or a governmental failure to allow something like that to come about. So, yeah, you are right that this is the better outcome for China.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen, though.
No. Yeah. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting to touch back on, given the amount of time we had spent on it previously. I know we talked briefly about my COVID stuff at the start, but are you still going about your life as if it's fairly normal, historically normal?
Oh, honestly, couldn't give a shit at this point. I take no precautions whatsoever. I haven't worn a mask since 2008. So wow. I feel like at this point, like my boss got it this week. I was in the office with him, just him and I, for like a number of days. I just feel like I am invincible, quite frankly.
Good.
I feel like I cannot be touched. The virus doesn't want me. In some ways, I want it more than it wants me, which is kind of weird. Like, I feel like the
just
clingy
noting
one.
down the time codes of this. Okay, 1 hour 29. Okay, great. Just popping a note here for future reference.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, from what everyone has said, like it's like some people are saying like it's terrible. Some people are saying it's mild. Like, I'm so bored of talking about COVID, and I thought we were done. And I just, if me getting it, the only time I really worry about it is when I'm going away, and I am going away in a couple of weeks. So then I'll be like, no, then I'll be terrified. But I just feel like, I can't be taken down, Nick. Um, I can't be
Will you
stopped.
be terrified when traveling because you don't want to miss out on the trip, or as in you don't want to be
Yeah,
sick while you're over there?
I don't care about getting sick. I just don't. I just want to do the traveling that I have paid for and booked. That's all I care about. I don't care about infecting others. I don't care about getting sick. If I do start to develop a cough before my flight, I won't be taking a test. I'll just be
Really?
jumping on that plane. Yeah, and I'll just be. I will just not prove that I have it to myself. You know, I'll just go about my business.
That's so selfish, though.
What's
If you had actual symptoms the day before, you are not going to test.
Yeah, I'm
Michael,
joking. I'm joking. I'm joking.
you weren't joking. You can't just say I'm
I
joking after
was.
saying something deadly serious.
Yeah, I was doing a character. I was playing like the selfish guy. So trying that out on for a change. No, I would obviously take a test if I got COVID. I wouldn't be able to hide it. I probably would be able to hide it actually with my immune system, but I mean, I would retreat from. I'll retreat from social gatherings for the week leading up
Yeah,
to it.
that's what I did
But
leaving
yes,
as
just to
well.
clarify, I was joking.
Okay. Why are you
Yeah.
smiling? Why are you shaking your head? No, what does that mean? You're pointing
Why
at
are you
them saying,
crying?
like, idiots? Okay, that's confusing. How did you communicate the idea the listener is an idiot just by gestures without saying anything?
Oh, they are stupid for listening to this bullshit.
Okay, gosh, we've lost our only listeners. Okay, you don't want
Yeah.
to talk about COVID. What else are we going to talk about? What do we
No,
got?
no, no. I don't mean necessarily that. I wasn't saying that. I'm sick of talking about COVID. I'm just sick. I just thought it was. I thought it was going to be like a done thing, and in many
Yeah.
ways it is, I guess. But it's just like it's
Well, it's
2022.
certainly done in the sense that governments have stopped trying to prevent people getting it.
Well, in Victoria, the chief medical officer advised that they implement mask mandates again in certain situations, but there is a little election coming up, and they just completely ignored the advice. And they were like, "We think this is the Labor government in Victoria. They said we think people can make their own decisions about it," which is a very different
Yeah.
tune than what they were singing in last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it would be political suicide to implement a mask mandate at this point.
Yeah. I understand the tiredness, particularly the Victorians have for that kind of rigorous preventative measure stuff. But it's just a shame that the longer that you don't take measures, the more people that catch it, the more variants that brew, and the more likelihood that it's not going away, and the worse that the next one's going to be. So it's just a shame
But we're
that
not going to be
through
able
this.
to eradicate it. And isn't it true that the virus will, as it becomes more proliferates throughout society, like communities or cities or whatever, that it will mutate to become weaker? I heard that
Absolutely
somewhere.
not
Is that
true.
true?
Absolutely not true. There's every
Okay.
chance the next version will be much deadlier. There's no
Well,
There's
are you
no
calling Joe
connection between
Rogan wrong then?
often, frequently, and probably not as much as I should.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't Rogue Daddy, but it was another scientist.
Rogue Daddy. Yes. Look, the scary thing I think about also letting it run rip is that the reinfection numbers are worrying because every time you get it, the chance of you getting more serious complications increases linearly. So if you get it twice, you have twice as much chance as getting myocarditis or some other long-term, lifelong, potentially health consequence as a result of it. And so, yeah, even if you've had it, you don't want to get it again. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will have the same symptoms as last time or get through it like you did.
Yeah. Well, eat your veggies. Is my advice.
I hope you don't get it before you travel.
Sunlight. Thanks. I feel like you do hope I get it just because of everything
I don't know.
just said.
I mean, how could you think that after all of that and all of that I said last time when I was writing the worst of it about still wearing an N95 mask and all the thing, how can you think that I would want anyone to get it?
Because Nick, I've known you for 15 years, and I know that you're a vindictive kind of a prick. No offense. And I've seen you do this before. You've wished ill on people. You've wished ill on me. just because
I spit on people
of petty things that I've said.
Yeah.
You've spat on me in the street, but to be fair, I asked for it.
Yeah. Would it make me happy for you to get it and to feel really sick? Absolutely. Would I feel morally superior? Of course.
Yeah.
Would it be sort of sexually arousing? Absolutely. Like, would I gratify myself with that knowledge? 100%.
Of course.
Do I hope that you like have long-term complications for it? Sure, absolutely. You've got it coming.
Yeah.
Do I think that it would potentially be a deadly threat to you given your prior history of smoking? Probably. Yeah, absolutely.
No.
Got a lot of ongoing
Vaping
medical issues. Do I want it to happen?
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say
Borderline.
that. Borderline.
Yeah. How funny is that, like, device that people use when they just ask themselves questions and then answer them? Like, who invented that? And they do. You were just doing it for a joke, just then going on for fucking forever. But, like, people do that. Isn't that just so weird? I find it so weird when they do the question and answer thing
interesting, like,
themselves.
linguistic. Yeah. Where did that come from? I'll tell you.
Yeah. It's like it's for impact. Don't you think?
It's like to
make more impact.
Yeah. It's a persuasive argument because it stops the listener from having to answer the question or from thinking of a different answer to the question because it puts the answer that the speaker wants into their mind already.
Yes. Do you know, just while we're on linguistic nonsense, I had this down as a myth, but I hate it when people shorten idioms and they let you, because they're so frequently said, they let you fill out the rest of it in their head. So, like, when instead of as per usual, people go as per.
Yeah.
It's
the grass
gross.
is always.
You know what the grass is, don't you?
Well, that's the grass for you.
Yeah. I got another one on this language stuff. If you're ready for it, when people say, "I was gonna say," and then they say the thing that they were gonna say, but they're saying it, or they say, "Oh, I was hoping to reach out." You're doing it. You're doing it right now.
Do you think that most of the instances where that phrase is used is not where they've remembered it later? Because when I say, "Oh, I was going to say," I'm often it's a thing that like the conversation's drifted off in a different direction,
Sure.
or I've lost the thought, and it's like, "Oh, I was going to say, how's your mum doing?" Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you think people are using it when the idea is first coming to mind?
To kind of bring back the tangent. Maybe they're doing that. I feel like I've heard it in they're just saying it because it's trying to soften. It's trying to soften the aggressiveness of it. Instead of just saying the thing, they say, "I was going to say." It's kind of polite in a way.
Right. It's like it's almost a little bit of a segue to like smooth out a conversational bump in the road.
Yeah, I think so. It just fucking irks me. I hate it. And when people say "should of" instead of "should have," I'm like, "You're
That
dumb."
one.
In my head, I go, "You're dumb." It's like the punishment does not fit the crime. I understand that, but in my head, I won't say anything usually. But when someone says "should of," when they say it with words, I mean, if you say it with text, if you type it, I mean that's still terrible. But if you say should of, you're down a peg in my brain.
I do know what you mean. Sometimes you do make those judgments reading text. Like for me, a your, like apostrophe fuck up.
Oh yeah.
If I read an email from
yeah.
that, you've gone down a peg in my brain.
Yeah. Now, do you appreciate this when someone texts you? Like, just say it's just like an iMessage, and someone texts you and they've used the wrong, they've like done a your, but then they've done it incorrectly, but then they follow up with like an asterisk. Like, you don't really
I'll allow that.
care.
I'll 100% allow.
You'll allow it? But it's just for that person. Like, it's just that person going, hey, I'm not dumb.
Yes. But it's also because sometimes I feel like I'm battling autocorrect and it refuses to fucking just do the thing easily. And you fix it and then you send it. It's like unfixed itself. So I feel I've been that person who's sent the asterisk your like follow up. I think it's absolutely like I know I did that wrong, but I didn't mean to, or I caught it. You know, I'm not an idiot.
Yeah. I mean, I've done it just because I am an idiot and not autocorrect, and just let it go. Because I thought maybe this is just self-indulgent at this point. It depends who it is as well. Like,
you mean sending a follow-up is self-indulgent?
Yeah, I feel like it's self-indulgent because at the end of the day, you're still communicating the thing that you need. Like, everyone knows what you mean, but you don't want the other person to think that you're a dummy. So this is you going, hey, I'm not a dummy. So it's just for you.
Yeah, but sometimes like if it's friend to friend or whatever, like who cares? It doesn't really matter. If it's like to a boss or in a like work email or a client or something, I feel like that has like potential consequences, right? Like the perception of like to a stranger of how you've presented yourself or whatever could color the way that they see you or how willing they are to, interact with you or whatever. Like maybe a small amount, but probably an amount.
Yeah, I agree. If it's a professional setting, for sure. And if you're trying to like court someone.
If I got a PR email or like an agent or, someone for a magazine coming out and saying, hey, we love your show. We want to do an interview with you. And the your is all fucked up and the email is like all over the place grammatically. My likelihood of interacting with that person and treating it as like a serious thing is much lower than if it was like better spelled.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's funny, in my job, I'm often emailing or getting emails from reporters or journalists, and they seem to have the worst punctuation of anyone because they're often just like, it's like rapid firing. They're usually doing it from their phone, and because they just need answers like really quickly, they're just going bang, bang, bang. Like, it's just like some of it's like horrible. And these, some of these people are like renowned reporters. I'm like, this is how you work?
Yeah, this makes me think less of you.
Yeah.
Speaking of smoking, we sort of briefly. You said the word smoking.
But you just threw it in there. Yeah.
We talked maybe a year ago about the idea that New Zealand was going to ban cigarettes. Do you remember that? There has been now progress on that front. And I just thought I would, again, just circle back with this bit of a follow-up episode, perhaps. But I wanted to circle back and just talk about some of the calculations that have been done about the potential health benefits from this. So this act has been read in Parliament and it's taking a step forward. The bill provides for 3 strategies to basically aim at smoking prevalence dropping below 5% of the adult population within years, not decades. So the strategies are drastically reducing nicotine content in tobacco, so it's no longer addictive. They call that denicotinization, or very low nicotine cigarettes, VLNC. A 90% to 95% reduction in the number of shops that can sell tobacco, and making it illegal to sell tobacco to people born in 2009 or later, creating the smoke-free generation. If this is implemented effectively, it's anticipated to have a profound impact on smoking. It's also directly, like one of the big motivating factors for it arising in New Zealand is reducing the Maori health inequity. So the indigenous people here have a lot of lesser health standards in terms of generalized health, but also like life expectancy, that kind of thing. And a lot of that is connected to smoking and those associated things. So this step would actually bring a lot of equity across those various demographics, and a lot of the backing behind it has come from Maori communities and that sort of thing. But anyway, just to touch on a couple of the numbers here, they're talking about large reductions in mortality rates. So basically, in every part of previous research, there's never been a single health intervention with the potential to reduce health inequities this much. A tobacco endgame is so powerful at reducing these health inequities because smoking is so bad for health, and smoking rates are particularly high in these cultures, and thus they have higher smoking-related disease rates. So the overall gains, the modelling suggests that over the remaining lifespan of New Zealand population alive in 2020, a tobacco endgame strategy results in an extra 600,000 health-adjusted life years lived, i.e. the impact of the interventions on life expectancy adjusted for quality of life. So to put this in perspective, this amount of health gain accruing only to those people quitting smoking earlier or not taking it up, which is a minority of the population, is equivalent to the health gains that would result from a policy that taxed sugar, fat, and salt in all foods and removed the GST on healthy food. So it would save $1.3 billion of health system costs over the next 20 years, which can be then put into other things like mental health or dementia care or whatever. And while the government loses tax revenue from the reduced tobacco sales, the overall health of the population increases, meaning people live longer and work for longer. And so there's an income gain to the population of 1.4 billion, and thus more tax revenue that comes back from income and from people working and living longer. So
it's wild that they think of it like that long term. Like it's so interesting that like governments think of like, yes, everyone's a person and everyone has rights, but at the end of the day, like if you're a government, you are seeing how like certain measures that you implement have ripple effects to, like ants. Like if you dropped I don't know, a Coke can into an ant colony. I don't know why I thought of that.
Sorry, why is your analogy for a ripple effect dropping Coke cans on ants rather than a pebble into water, like how ripples are formed?
because my analogy, you wanted to see how the ants react to it and what they do, and they go around it or whatever.
Okay, sure.
And like it's so interesting that they are predicting. I guess it's a prediction based on data, I assume, that like if they implement this strategy, it will the health benefits will eventually mean that people live and work longer, and then that will generate more income. That's like, it's so crazy. Like we're all ants. We are all ants.
Yeah. But what do you think about that number? 600,000 life years, return to the population, like 600,000 years of life just to this population of people who either stop smoking sooner or don't ever pick it up. Like that's an incredible amount of life. It's strange to think of it in such a sort of numerical form, but like
it's almost like nonsensical though, because no one stacks up years. Like it makes more sense, the framing of just like the average per person.
Sure. I guess the variability of that makes it a less it makes it seem less substantial in action. So I understand why they would sum it up to try and give an estimation of the impact versus, the average Maori person might live 2 years longer, or 8 months longer. That doesn't sound quite the same,
Yeah, sure. No, that's cool. There's going to be a lot more kids vaping.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be very interesting to see if this even passes. Like,
and so they should, because vaping is dope.
Yep, you're
Vaping's
still
dope,
vaping.
kiddies.
You're vaping as we speak.
Yeah, baby. Do you have many vapors in New Zealand?
Yeah, they're
You see it?
around. Yeah.
Okay. There's a weird thing here where they're legal to sell, but they're not legal to use. So you can, and I've heard
What?
anecdotally people getting, you can buy them at tobacco shops, the disposable ones, these bad boys. You can buy them at tobacco shops. They can legally sell them to people over 18, but you can't use them unless you have a nicotine prescription. And apparently, some people that are friends of friends have gotten pulled over by the cops for
So
vaping.
could you use a vape that only had like the maple syrup flavor, but like no nicotine?
You can,
Like,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so how does a police officer know that it's nicotine? Is it based on smell?
No. It's. I'm guessing that it's based on like you can know the design. Like this is.
Oh, so a
like
specific brand will be a specific nicotine one, and they can
Yeah.
spot that and go, let's see if they have the license.
Yeah, and by the way, everyone, especially where I live, everyone is smoking the same kind of brand because there's like two brands, and
Right.
they've all got nicotine in them. But yeah, what a weird little loophole thing. It's so like stupid, isn't it?
Well, it's one of those things where the law is always slower than the progress of technology in society. So the idea that this little electronic device would come under the market was not foreseen when they first drafted smoking laws, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How much are you smoking these days? Would you be nicotine addicted?
Well, certainly more than I was when I was smoking cigarettes, because I'd usually smoke socially, and now I vape pretty regularly. So I would say I'm more addicted to nicotine now, but way healthier.
Do you think if you did like a dry July and you put aside the vape for the month of August, would you make it?
It would be tough. I've been talking. Me and Lauren have been like kind of toying with the idea of kind of you not going cold turkey, but placing the vape in certain situations. So, for example, just leaving it at home when you go out, or or just leaving it in your car, something like that.
So
But
why
I
are you
think it
having
would
those
be a little bit.
conversations?
Sorry.
Why were you? What's prompted those conversations about? Should we try and decrease the spaces in which we're vaping?
Well, I think it's just like you don't want to be you don't want to have a dependence on anything. That's just not a good position to be in. So I think trying to curb that is a good thing. Like you don't want to be
Sure.
addicted to anything, even if it's not necessarily that bad or that financially. It's not a financial burden, but you
Yeah.
just don't want the dependence, I think.
Yeah, that's fair.
But you've never been addicted to anything in your life, or have you? Addicted to cock?
Nothing that comes to mind. Aren't we all? Yeah, nothing comes to mind. I mean, weirdly, I have a very regimented personality. Like, I'm good at sticking to rhythms. So if I set the rhythm that I go to the gym on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'll go to the gym on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If I set the rhythm that I meditate once a day, I'll meditate for 1,700 days in a row. I'm good at keeping that rhythm. And weirdly, that's almost anti-addictive in some ways, because even though I do the thing on a rhythm, I will never do the thing not on the rhythm. So, like, if it was the thing where, like, for a while there, the closest thing I have to an addiction, I'd say, is probably coffee. But for a while when I was working in the office, I would set a rhythm of I'd buy a coffee on a Monday, a Tuesday, and a Thursday. Just because I didn't want to be spending all that money on takeaway coffees, and also because I didn't want to feel like I couldn't work or couldn't be awake in the morning without a big boost of caffeine. And I was very good at sticking to that rhythm, even though I would love a coffee on a Wednesday
Yeah.
I would be very good typically at never having a coffee then, because my brain would say, well, it's a Wednesday, you can't have a coffee today. And so I
Right.
wouldn't. So it's kind of like a preventative measure, even though it can be so regular,
Sure.
if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, like
It's a
the older you
self-control
get.
thing, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you've got like it's almost an external system in place for yourself. Well,
Yeah.
maybe it's internal. It's something.
Well, it's sort of both. I get what you mean by it. Like it's I don't get to control what day of the week it is, so in some ways it feels external where it's like, well, I'm
Yeah.
not allowed to have that, even though it's self-imposed.
Yeah, it's funny that like the older you get, the more you value routine. Like routine to me now these days is the most important thing, and it's something that I love. And it's also tied in with like self care and all this stuff. Like as soon as I turned, I'm probably like a year behind everyone. I like to think of myself as a year behind in terms of development, but I think like it just helps me process things. But I
Like
think
you
like
were
as soon as
held
I
back
turned
at school.
yes, but like also emotionally and all that other stuff. As soon as I turned like 31, I reckon like I just really would not. I don't want to stray from my routine, and I like I like things how I like them because they help me be healthier and be more focused. Not that it's helping the focus that much, but yeah, I've got a lot of ground to cover.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
also like happier as a result, no doubt.
Well, that's the thing. But in my 20s, I know you and I are very different in this regard. But in my 20s, I just wouldn't give a shit about my health at all or my sleep. And it's so wild to me to even think that now, to even like think that I did that without any care whatsoever. I would just like
Like do an
I
all-nighter and then turn up at work on a
yeah,
Sunday and just like push on
ev-
for another 6. Yeah.
regularly would
Yeah.
do that. And now I'm in bed by 10:30 on Friday, and I'm up at 7:30, and I'm like, well, I've had 9 hours sleep. Now I can
Yeah.
go to the gym and go to the market and do all this stuff. And now being like refreshed when I wake up on the weekend is as like exciting to me as the idea of partying was in my 20s. Like it's the
Yeah.
new like party, like just being
Yeah.
healthy and clear minded on the weekends and having energy to do stuff.
It reminds me of that late season 30 Rock plot point with Jenna and Will Hader's character, whose name I can't remember, but who was like that stalker fan of Jenna. And they started dating, and they've done every kink, they've tried everything, and then they stumble onto this thing that's called normcore, and it's going to bed early, and it's shopping at IKEA and like buying new laundry hampers and this kind of thing, and they're so convinced that it's like dirty and like so perverted, and
Yeah.
let's go to bed
Yeah.
at 10, and then
Yeah.
by the end they realize, oh, that's just how normal people live.
Yeah, I know.
But
That's exactly
I do
right.
like I do like that you're like, oh, I love getting up at 7:30 on a Saturday because then I can go
I
to the
know.
market, and it's like,
I know.
imagine playing that clip to yourself 8 years ago when we started this podcast,
I
and you were
know.
fucking 24, 25.
I know. It's so. I mean, I feel like a lot of things have changed. Of reflecting a lot on being almost in my mid 30s now, which is then it just creeps up on you so quickly.
Yeah,
But there's a lot of things that my values. I can feel my values changing at this point in my life. I'm all of a sudden more really thinking about money and thinking about should I invest money in things? Should I be saving up to buy a house? Should I do all these things? These are things that I never even considered for a second a couple of years ago. Like I should have.
yeah,
I should have. I
yeah,
should have. But I just didn't. And it's not that I like regret not prizing those things now, because what are you going to do? You can't you can't make things, you can't
You
change
can't go back in
things, and you
time.
can't, and it wouldn't have been different. It wouldn't have been different. But and I guess on some level, you should just be grateful that you do kind of, you do have that priority change or that priority shift in your values at any point, and still, you know, in our early 30s, I guess, depending on how you're framing your story.
Yeah.
Do
But
you
like
feel
so
that
much of that is
you're
also
shifting?
uh let me just touch on my thought for you, which was so
Sure.
much of that is external as well, because you can only really start thinking about money once you have money, and you often don't really have money until you've got like a steady job and like
Yeah.
a certain amount of a safety net there. And for a lot of people, your
Yeah.
20s aren't those kind of jobs, so I don't think you're
No.
necessarily like 10 years behind everyone else. There are always those occasional people who are like 24 and they did a 3-year course at uni, and then they're in a professional environment at
Yeah.
age 21, and then by 25 they've bought their house or whatever. But like I think that's
Yeah.
abnormal. um
Yeah.
in terms of actually off pod, I won't keep this in, but like what is your savings at? Like if, do you care talking finances? Like how much money do you have sitting around? If you don't want to talk, that's
I
fine.
have I have some savings. I have a reasonable amount of savings. Um, I could probably go overseas for a while.
Yeah.
It might have been on the back of a conversation that I had with you, but I now meticulously basically budget. Um, and I have built my own like spreadsheet budget, and I know
Oh wow.
exactly how much money I need to spend and exactly how much money I have coming in and exactly where the bills are and upcoming payments are going. So I am so much better with it now, but I do feel like I have the tendency and the urge to um, maybe live beyond my means when I shouldn't. But
Hmm.
it's just been better lately, and it's just like come with a bit of financial maturity.
Well, that's very diligent. Do you find that exhausting to manage? Okay, I've got this payment coming in, but this payment I want to spend now. Like, is it a burden to be that like attentive, or do you find it like r- relaxing or like like helpful to be so aware?
No, I find it like a game. It's like a game. Like I'm like very into it. I don't find it
Okay,
exhausting
cool.
at all. And
Yeah.
it's like I want it is like a game. That's when I started to even build savings. It was when I started to treat it like a game. When I could go, okay, if I can save this much at the end of the week or the end of the pay cycle, and then I'll have this much more in my savings. Like that will be the, even though it should inherently be the win itself, like making it into a game
Setting the
seemed to
goal
be
and then
helpful
hitting the
for my,
goal.
it was even more incentive than even just having the money.
Yeah. Oh, that's
But
great.
yeah,
Good on you. Um, in terms of my changing ethics or brain processes or whatever, which was your question prior to that, for me, I am thinking more about those kind of big picture questions of like buy a house or like what what's the big financial goal that you're saving for or that you're working towards, but that it is something that I had not been thinking about for a long time, because for a long time the psychological reassurance of having moved to New Zealand was I'm not going to be in New Zealand forever. This is a thing that I can leave at any time. If this job doesn't work out, if this career doesn't work out, I'll just go back to Australia. And so, like, that was a sort of safety blanket to be like, this doesn't matter. Like, it's okay if you fail. It's okay if it doesn't work out. You can go back to Oz. And associated with that was the idea that, well, you don't need to really put down roots here then. And for
right.
like I dated on and off, but didn't really like get into any long-term relationships. I didn't look to buy a house or get into the property market, because what's the point? I'm not going to be in New Zealand forever. Now
Yeah.
it's at the point where I've been in a relationship with KC for 2.5 years, and I've been in New Zealand for coming up on 8 years, 7.5 years.
Wild.
So, which is crazy. So at this point, like, he's also in his 30s, and he's, working at a professional level job for a goal to buy a house. And so when you're in that position and you're in a long-term relationship, it invariably becomes that, like, what are we looking to in the future? So now it is a situation where I'm like, okay, well, let's go look at some houses then. Let's see what the market's like. What do we need in terms of a deposit? What do we need in terms of bank guarantees and that sort of thing? So from that place where having the partner who was interested in it, I have now been dragged into that mindset as well.
Right, so you would potentially be looking to buy a house together.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's a funny one.
Currently, the market's a fucking shit show, so it's
yeah,
it's not an immediate proposition.
Yeah, I feel like there's, like I said, I've never really thought about the buying a house thing, even though I should have. But you're also kind of getting up to this kind of, it seems like a kind of a crunch timey part in your life where I don't feel like I am ready to buy a house, but I also still have the same kind of dreams and ideas of the future for myself that I had in my 20s, which is I still want to, go traveling and, maybe live overseas. And it feels like those ideas and those dreams have kind of remained, but your age is increasing and it feels like they become less attainable. So you almost it almost feels like you have to make a decision about that, pretty soon, at least in the sense of, do I want to invest in buying a house and not go traveling and not have those experiences that I maybe thought I was going to have or assumed I was going to have? Or do I go traveling and do I go overseas and basically use the money that could have gone towards an investment in a house?
Yeah. Well, the other thing as well, which is it influenced that train of thought for us, is connected to the living situation. It's like, okay, well, our fucking landlord decided to up and sell the house and tried to turf us out, and you're living in someone's place and you're paying rent to someone else which is just throwing money away, and you don't get to paint the place, you don't get to make any changes, you don't get to plant things or do whatever you want to do. And at a certain point, after you've been renting for so long, there's a degree of tedium that can set in with that. So I think that motivates a bit of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we're getting old, man. We're getting old, that's for sure.
If you're also getting old, well then you've got less time than ever to get through our entire back catalogue. So don't delay. Jump on that feed. Scroll back down and listen to an episode you haven't listened to before. What are you doing? Time is ticking. If you want to follow us in other places, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram. You can listen to us on SoundCloud, our jingles, and Spotify, our songs. And you can send questions and comments to deepfort@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
Maybe we should start an OnlyFans. Make a little cashola. What do you think?
We mean start an OnlyFans.
How much money would it take for you to show your butthole on OnlyFans? Not no face, but just your butthole. Yep. How much would it take?
Do it for free. You got to give them a little bit up front. Just give them a taste, and then the real money comes when you reel them in for the later stuff.
I'd probably do it for $400.
You would not show your butt for less than $400.
I think $400 is a reasonable
price. If someone said plonks $200 on the counter, two crisp green $100 bills, $200, mate, show us your butthole. You would have pocketed that cash.
Well, if it's going to live on the internet forever, I would think $400. Also, know your worth. You haven't seen my butthole, Nick, and you probably never will. It's a nice
That's
looking
fair.
butthole, man.
If it's an
a nice
incredible
looking butthole.
butt, then fair enough. $400.
I just value my butthole.
Yeah. Well, you are full of shit, so it makes sense.
So shit. So shit, but I'll pay it.
Okay. How about something weird?
Something little out of the ordinary, a little unusual, are you saying?
Something a little bit left of center, a little bit unexpected.
A little bit off. All right. We'll see.
In the news today from the Strange and Weird Fact File.
Well, for decades, only crackpots and crazy people believed in UFOs.
Deputies
That's what I
say
thought
the
anyway.
suspect told them he's been performing sex acts on animals since the
Tonight I told
1970s.
about my close encounter with the Yeti. Totally true.
A sticky situation at an airport in Tennessee after baggage was sprayed with rust.
Turns out, the governments had been taking them seriously all along.
This is Deep Fault Weird News with Michael Zuberefkala-Sludge.
So, this is an article in Stuff magazine entitled Japanese City Puts Down Monkey After Incidents of Biting, Clawing and Attacking. People in a southwestern Japanese city have come under attack from monkeys that are trying to snatch babies, bite and claw flesh, and sneak into nursery schools. The attacks on 58 people since July 8th are getting so bad that the Yamaguchi City Hall has hired a special unit to hunt the animals with tranquilizer guns. The monkeys aren't interested in food. Traps haven't worked. They have targeted mostly children and the elderly. They are so smart that they tend to sneak up and attack from behind, grabbing your legs. When confronted by a monkey, the instructions are, don't look them in the eye, make yourself look as big as possible by spreading your coat, and then back away as quietly as possible without making sudden moves. A woman was assaulted by a monkey while hanging laundry on her veranda. Another victim had bandaged toes. They were taken aback and frightened by how big and fat the monkeys were. The monkeys terrorizing the community are the Japanese macaque, the kind often pictured peacefully bathing in hot springs. One male monkey measuring 49 centimeters in height and weighing 7 kilos was caught Tuesday by a team with a tranquilizer gun. It was judged by various evidence to be one of the attacking monkeys and put to death. But more attacks were reported after the capture. No one has been seriously injured so far, but all have been advised to get hospital treatment. Ambulances were called in some cases. Although Japan is industrialized and urban, a fair portion of land in the archipelago is mountains and forests. Rare attacks on people by a bear, boar, or other wildlife has occurred, but generally not by monkeys. No one seems to know why the attacks have occurred, and where the troop of monkeys came from remains unclear. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life, said Saito.
Wow.
Guys, we've got
Scary.
a swarm of angry monkeys out there, biting children and elderly, and no one knows why.
By the way, that first picture at the top of the article, terrifying.
Awful.
Absolutely terrifying. Just a monkey gripping the banister of a window and staring in as if it really wants something inside. Terrible.
Yeah. It is.
I love that they're snatching babies.
Yeah, snatching babies,
What are you
eating
doing
flesh.
with a baby?
I don't know. Maybe they're trying to start a cult.
This is the Planet of the Apes, but it's not. It's not apes. It's just little monkeys. That's what
It's Planet
that's what
of
they
the
got wrong.
Zombie Apes. It's like a zombie swarm. It's like they're coming. They're pummeling on the doors. They're like jumping on people.
Monkeys are scary because you feel like they're really cute, but they have like really big teeth. And when I was in Sri Lanka, I got surrounded by monkeys. And I was on a hike, and we came up to this like kind of, it was just like on the path of the hike, and there were like all these monkeys just sitting across this tree trunk, and we had nowhere else to go. We could either go back or forward, and we tried to like kind of move past them, and they let out the most horrifying scream, basically saying, "Go fuck yourself." And I was like, "That monkeys are scary, man. Don't fuck with monkeys."
I know that you, on occasion, have visited the zoo because you like monkeys. Do you have a particular sense of which ones are the smartest or the most, like, I don't know, aggressive?
I don't really know. I would say these macaques seem pretty bad. I mean, baboons, I guess, aren't really monkeys. They're like apes. I don't really know the difference between too many monkeys. These ones, just the way that this monkey in the photo is looking in, I would say that this species is the worst one.
Yeah.
The ones with monkeys with an agenda, they're the worst. They're the worst monkeys.
Yeah,
You don't want a
political
monkey with an
monkeys.
agenda.
A monkey trying to make a point.
Yeah. Don't fuck with a monkey who is trying to make a point. That's good advice.